So we are live
Right.
and we will look at and see. Hopefully all of the people can see us. If anybody is waiting, we can wait 1 or 2 minutes
Yeah,
for
sure.
people to join. All right. So today we are going to talk about a very, very interesting topic. And I think that this topic is of particular interest because I have seen so many people ask us about these issues. One is, how does when somebody is like a not a US citizen, how does marriage and divorce um, impact their immigration options? And I think, Mitsu, you will be talking about um, the divorce and the marriage process, and I will be talking more about the immigration process. And I think that together we really have found that these issues oftentimes they do mix with each other. So yeah, why don't you get started, Mitsu? And I'm so excited that we are doing this together.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here, especially because you and me both we are both connected to India and Indians, and mostly our target clientele is always Indians because they know that we know the culture and traditions, and we are more apt to respond to them and help them when they need any advice, especially when it comes to divorce and immigration. And though both of them, like both divorce and immigration, are two very different subjects but are always intertwined when we talk about non-immigrants like H1B, L1B, F1, and the other dependent visas. So like I'm just happy to be here and talk about it.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about, like, what kinds of questions do you usually get from people, um, and what are some common question types, and how can you help resolve those issues, or how can our viewers and potential clients navigate these topics?
Yeah, so the most important question that we both of us answer is about the jurisdiction, especially divorce jurisdiction. And as like after 2014, that India is developing digitally, and a lot of laws that we were not aware about, not just the normal public, but even lawyers were not aware about, or government offices were not aware about, they have like come up, and they have come to the light. So first of all is the jurisdiction issue that people always ask, where is our jurisdiction, where do we need to get divorced. The other thing that mostly people ask about is child abduction, especially when both the partners are living in US or anywhere in the country, sorry, anywhere in the world. And other things are questions more about assets in two different countries. Then people talk about immigration issues, as you know, one of the spouse is always dependent on other. So these are the main four questions that we have to answer, but those four questions have another 400 questions in them.
Yeah, you're right. So what we're talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, is when somebody, for example, is married in India, they have moved to a different country, like, for example, the United States, and then things are not working out between them. So now we're talking about two different jurisdictions.
Yeah,
One
so
is
they are married
the
in India, they are Indian citizens, they are still non-immigrants in US or Canada or any other country that they go to, right? So they are still subject to the Indian jurisdiction, but people think that just because they are moving out of India, that means they have to forget the laws of India. While that is the very wrong notion that people have.
And what are some of the dangers, like if somebody doesn't pay attention to the laws of India? They move here, they're Indian citizens, they have married in India, and they decide to get divorced in the US and they completely ignore the Indian side of things. What are some of the risks or dangers that they face?
So mostly what I have come across is when people move out of India, they get divorced in US and then they get remarried, then they are actually committing bigamy. And when they are committing bigamy, so that is not an offense just in India but also in US. Another thing is that there is no fair division of assets. And then the whole child abduction thing is always there. As per, that is also a very individual situation that I'm talking of. Not everyone has to deal with child abduction, but most have to. And like why I do speak about child abduction, I would just like to make clear, as per Indian law, there is nothing like child abduction. It is just what Western countries speak about and have laws about it and have conventions about it. India strongly believes a parent cannot abduct a child and go anywhere.
So here we are not talking about some stranger abducting the child. We're talking about one parent who is not getting along with the other parent, maybe taking their child and either moving to the US or taking their child and moving to India. Uh,
Right.
right? And this is extrajudicial in the fact that this is not because there has been a custody determination in a court of law, whether in India or in the US. They've just taken this decision by themselves. So in that
Correct.
case, India deals with it very differently, it sounds like, than how US deals with it.
Uh, so the whole point is that India is not signatory to Hague Convention for child abduction. So we have our own laws to deal with it. Uh, it was under Indian Penal Code earlier. I will use the earlier codes and not the new codes because people are not much aware about the new codes and their names. So
Mhm.
IPC has their own way to deal with it, calling it a kidnapping, abduction, but in a very different way. So when we get notices in India from lawyers from US, that notices are not actually worth or we don't have to comply because the land that we are in, that thing has not occurred, that thing is not recognized, what
Right.
you are sending us notice about.
Right. And Mitsu, we have more people who have joined us. So I just want to reintroduce us. This is Mitsu Chavda and Dhenu Maru, and we're talking about a very interesting topic, one that both of us have encountered quite a lot. Mitsu specializes in Indian laws, and she
International family law.
international family law, excuse me, and I focus on US immigration law. And we see these two topics intersect quite a lot because, of course, there are, especially for NRIs, when NRIs move to the US and they are dealing both with immigration issues as well as with family law issues many, many times. And so, I think that this is a very, very complex intersection that sometimes people really do get wrong, right? They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do about where to go for their legal process, whom to reach out to. And they also get confused about their immigration process. So, we want to at least touch on some of these topics so that at least people have an idea, brief idea, on how to navigate these very complex intersection of laws, right?
Right.
And so, whoever wants to ask questions, you guys can ask them in the comments. If you have joined us, please let us know where are you joining us from. Mitsu and I are both from very, very different parts of the country right now. I'm in Chicago, and Mitsu, you are?
I'm in California.
She's in California. So we are on different time zones, different parts of the country. Would love to know where everyone is from if you're joining us. And so, Mitsu, you shared some very important topics. You mentioned that the laws around abduction night and day different between the US and India, and how they even view and whether they even consider something an abduction or not.
Yeah,
But the
correct.
US views it as an abduction, child abduction, if even if it's a parent that takes the child and takes it out of the jurisdiction of the United States, right? A
Yeah,
lot of
US has a very a narrow view of jurisdiction, you know. Sometimes when it comes to child custody cases and child abduction cases, it could be even a block. further from a school, or it could be even the city or a county. Like here we are dealing with a very broad spectrum, which is like the whole new country.
Right. And a lot of times, the citizenship is also different between the parents and the child. The child may be a US citizen, the parents may be Indian citizens, right? In
Correct.
the case of
Yeah.
NRIs.
Yeah.
And so then, which law Mitsu would apply to, taking the child? How does the child being a US citizen factor into it?
So when children are US citizen, then the US jurisdiction about the custody is primary. However, there is a catch to it. There is a committee of court which says that you have to think for the betterment of a kid. So in cases like there is abuse, and you can take your child to any country in the world, not in India, not in like just US, but you take any country and you can still go to the courts and you can ask for the child custody. And you have to of course, proofs and evidences are always there. And then for the betterment of kid, any court can decide for it. So citizenship does play an important role for jurisdiction, but when it comes to minors, it's more about their betterment.
Okay. And so, that to give like a specific example, if two parents are in the US, they're both Indian citizens, they're here on a visa status, child is a US citizen, and say one of the parents moves to India with the child without the permission of the other parent during a divorce proceeding or something like that, it's not necessary that Indian courts will say the child has to move back. Indian courts will rather look at, all the factors that will affect the betterment of the child. What was the nature of the parent who lives in the
So,
US?
see,
How
I would like to interrupt you over here. The point is, 95% of parents don't approach Indian courts thinking that the child is US citizen. And
Mm,
that's where they are wrong. They just go
mm,
to US court, they go to the US lawyers, they send the
mm,
Hague
mm.
Convention notice, which is really not worth because that is not recognized in the law of land. They don't engage in international lawyers, they don't engage in local lawyers. And the difference over here is US lawyers only know the US law and certain part of international law, and Indian lawyers only know Indian law and certain part of international law. They don't know everything about the international policies or diplomatic relation and conventions. So that is where international lawyers actually come in, whose specialization is just in this particular sect. So when there are as we spoke about that US citizen is taken to India, people don't even think about approaching to Indian courts and doing the following the right format. And that's where there
Mm.
is more losing to it. And as you know, being a lawyer yourself, the time is of essence.
Of course, yeah. And I think you yourself are an international lawyer, so they could approach someone like you, and you would be able to navigate these complex, pathways.
Yeah, that's correct. And as international family lawyers, when it comes to discovery and stuff, we are very well versed with different countries and their laws and their systems, procedure and processes. So we can actually help them, we can combine the laws, or we can, if needed, we can just bifurcate the laws and we can actually help them.
Right. And this is such a sensitive area because everybody wants, the best for their kid, and, people will be willing to fight a lot for their kids. So it's very important to get it right and to contact the right person for something like this.
That's absolutely correct what you are saying.
Yeah.
And then that is where even you come in because of the whole immigration thing. Now, one person who has taken a child who was living in US has gone back to India, has taken a child to India and is out of status in US. How will that person fight back in US courts? So
Right.
that
It
is where
will.
again you come in.
Right. So one of the things that I face a lot, Mitsu, just how you said, people don't know whom to approach and they make very, very big decisions without proper guidance. A lot of times in terms of US immigration, we find, especially people who are on dependent visas, like H4 visas and such, they assume that just because they are getting a divorce that they will have no options to stay in the US, and they assume that the only choice they have is to go to India, and they give up, their rights in the US. A lot of times they leave their kid behind and then they go to India thinking that they have no other options. And then sometimes they contact me and it's a little bit too late, because some of the options that are available for people are better accessed while they are in the US, you know. And once they leave the US, then coming to the US is an additional challenge that we have to face, that what would they use, what visa status will they use to enter the US. Because a lot of times the laws and immigration laws, they are different for entering and seeking admission, and different laws for changing statuses. So a lot of times when you're in the US and you're changing from, say, H4 status to a different status, that is somewhat easier than to change from, having no access to the US to try to gain access to the US. And people, a lot of times they lose their lot of their rights and opportunities because they just thought that they have no chance and they just leave to go to India. Especially a lot of cases where divorce occurs due to some form of abuse, like whether it's emotional abuse, whether it's financial abuse, physical abuse.
And have you noticed, that people don't realize that they have been abused because it doesn't fit in their definition of abuse, but which is an abuse in our legal language. Have you come across
Exactly.
those cases? And
Exactly.
I would like to go back to your point. When people are late, when I get the cases, 70% people are actually very late, and 30% people have themselves made the case so complicated that it does take a lot of time than it normally would have.
Right. And what you said, Mitsu, about people not knowing when something is an abusive situation, that is very, very common. It happens especially very often. It happens in all genders, I mean, but it happens especially very often with males. They don't recognize when they are being emotionally abused, because people have a very narrow view of what abuse means. They think that it has to involve physical violence. They think that physical violence also has to be extreme physical violence, like throwing your cell phone and breaking your cell phone is also a type of physical violence. They don't recognize that as physical violence, for example. They think it has to be extreme to the point where it becomes a police case. Only then it will be considered abuse. But for immigration, the definition for abuse is so broad. It includes all types of physical abuse, whether it's mild or serious. It includes emotional abuse. Things like, abandonment are considered abusive. Things like restricting somebody's freedoms, stopping them from contacting their family, not allowing them access to getting a driver's license. Those kinds of things are also very abusive, and they are
Not
considered,
letting them use their own bank account, or if they have
not
to
letting
ask
them
for
open a bank
permission, that
account.
is a
Yeah,
financial abuse,
very
and
much.
that's a big time financial abuse, especially for the working women. And what bothers me a lot is most educated people are the most ignorant ones, and that bothers me a lot. Because when we deal with you and me, both of us, when we deal with women and men who have come to US, most of them are really educated, minimum masters, like at least they have a degree. And that is where I believe that having a degree does not make you knowledgeable.
Yeah,
and,
because
and
this is a very specific area of knowledge. Having general knowledge, having general education will not give you the ins and outs of very particular legal topics.
Correct, correct. And the whole point is that they don't understand the nuances of their own case. By googling certain keywords, they are trying to find the answers to legal questions. That's like, for that we have to do a whole different topic. You know what kind of errors Google and ChatGPT does. But sometimes I come across those people that they come to me with ChatGPT questions and the follow-ups. And I'm like, oh God, I really need to take like 2 3 hours to even explain you how the process work, how your cases. And many of them comes with me saying that, my friend went through this and I'm going through this. And I'm like, give me line to line both of yours history and I will tell you how different it is. So
Right.
people think that just because someone has been through abuse, they are going through the same thing and their case will be same, but they don't realize that how cases are different from each other.
Right, that is so true. And also, sometimes people will delegate the attorney consultation to some other well meaning member of their family or friend, and they will not be present in it themselves. It's so important, I think, that the person is present in the consultation or the conversation with the attorney, even if their friend and family may be also there to support them, but they have to be there. They have to answer the questions, because there are so many things that only they will know.
I mean, like, that is what it is, and people need to understand. And I really want to answer all those questions that they have as a victim,
Right.
rather than, people who think that they might know a lot.
Hmm.
I simply don't do consultations with friends and families. They can be present, and even if my client cannot speak to me, my potential client cannot speak to me, they can write and anything, but I want them so that, there is no misinformation that I get when I give them any legal advice.
Right. No, I think that it's so important. And if they are bringing a friend or a family, they should ask the attorney, right? Just to make sure that it is okay, not just surprise them with, a group of people, even though the consultation is for one person.
Correct, correct. And mostly these days, I am not being surprised because all the group of people come with ChatGPT questions, so I know what they're gonna ask.
And do you find that, in general, when somebody tries to pursue this the right way, is it easier, faster, cheaper?
It is easier, faster, and cheaper when it is done right way from the very start. Whether it's in US, whether it's in India, because if your case is more complicated, we have to do more work. They have to spend more time, so everything gets complicated.
Right. Right. So
And
one.
a lot of documents and a lot of cases that we make basis of are even used to you guys for your whatever petition you are filing or something. So we are again interdependent. Even criminal lawyers, like in US, they are all different. Criminal, immigration, and family, but in India at least we are all same. We deal with all of them together. So whatever we use can be used, make can be used by you. Whatever you make can be used by us, and that is very important, which people don't understand. How in a long term all the legal documents can be used for your own better judgment and case dissolution.
Right. No, I think that is very good. I think there are, if you were to give like one takeaway for our viewers, that if they don't remember everything that we've talked about, they should only remember this one thing. What would be that one takeaway?
It would be just one thing: reach out to us. We know how to, get that memory back. Like when I get cases, I have series of series of follow up, which even starts before their marriage. How did they meet? How did the marriage happen? What happened after the marriage? We actually take them step by step, guide them. We don't want dates. We don't want exactly this date that, okay, today is 12th September and, Denu and Mitsu spoke. But I just want to that one day Dhenu and Mitsu spoke, and that's how we also developed the case. We rebuild their whole case so that we can use the same thing and we can show the court what actually our client has been through. So my only takeaway is reach out to people who know this, who have done this.
And Mitsu, what's a good email address or contact information that people can use to reach out to you?
My name is really unique. Honestly, I am available on any social media, but everyone can reach out to me on chavdalaws.com or consultation at chavdalaws.com.
Consultation at Chavda Laws,
Laws dot,
LAWS.
yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to just put it up here. Is this correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so if people can look her up, her name is very unique, Mitsu Chavda, or you can email this email over here and reach out to her if you are in that situation where you need to talk to an attorney. Don't wait, because the more you wait, the more steps you take by yourself, the more that it's difficult for people to try and fix those mistakes. And I'm also going to put simply put my information also. I'm a US immigration lawyer, which means I can handle cases from all over the US. It doesn't only have to be from one part of the US. Immigration lawyers can handle cases from all over the country, or from outside of the country. And we work with clients in varying different statuses, and we tried our best to at least give you clear guidance as to what you can do before you simply give up on your options. Um, I'm putting my information over here. You can contact me by phone, or you can also contact me by my website, which is swagatusa.com. My name is Dhenu Maru, and we would love to help people before they hurt their own case. That's the most important takeaway for me as well, Mitsu. I would love to help people who are in this very sensitive part, before they hurt their own case. We do have a comment here.
Mhm.
This commenter says, my friend is in India and his wife is in USA. When filing mutual divorce, where to file, USA or India? So I think this is a great question for you.
So mutual divorce you can file anywhere. It can be in India, it can be in US, but if they were married in India and if they are Indian citizens, then the petition has to have some points that are in accordance with Indian laws.
Hmm.
If that's not the case, then if you go to the bank or passport or even now property registration for change of name, then they do ask for a declaratory authority from Indian courts. So if I'm not sure where your friend is married, but I will assume they are married in India and they are Indian citizens, so they can file. But the primary jurisdiction still lies with Indian courts over the marriages that has happened in India, because we don't marry as per any uniform marriage act. If she's a Muslim, she is married as per Muslim Marriage Act. If she is Hindu, she is married as per Hindu Marriage Act. Now, in Hindu Marriage Act also, this act is very broad. Like, I come from a community where the transactions are very different. There are certain Hindu communities where bigamy is actually legal. So when they go through the whole divorce processes, dissolution of marriages, then a lot of things, the transaction, community guidelines, community tradition, community customs, they all things are taken into consideration. And when I say community transactions, that means in certain community in itself, it's not a dowry, but it's a gift that has been considered, uh, that is to be given to a girl or a guy. Those things are not taken into consideration when you file for divorces out of India. And those things are very important. Like, if I give you an example, one of my clients, my case is over now. Back in 2021, my client, they decided to settle for around 6 lakh Indian rupees, and the guy said he has to give, but while he will give that to the bride. But at the end of the day, when we did all the discovery and we saw all the community thing, he had already given things for like 5 lakh to that lady. So
Wow.
he didn't have to give 1 lakh, because then there are costs for the lawyers and there are different costs that she has to see. So a lot of difference is there when you start talking about, when you go deep in law. And when we start we start doing the discovery in US, the concept is of marital property. But in India, there is a certain property which is not a property, that is Sridhar, and that just belongs to a girl, a bride. So those are the things also that is to be considered. And when you start learning more about this, you would know that there is a lot of money that you save in the process.
Right. And Nipa, thank you so much. Nipa made a comment that this is a great discussion and much needed for the immigrants or expats in USA. I'm so glad that you find it to be relevant to the community. Of course, we are also part of the community, and that's what makes this discussion even more important for us, because we are dealing with people who are part of our own community, and we want to be able to help our community in navigating some of these very complex areas. So I'm so glad that we are having this discussion and that people of the community hopefully do find it useful. um
So when people are like subjecting themselves to jurisdiction of US, that cannot be even used at a lot of time. Like if people go and visit my website, I have in fact put a whole screenshot of my client's case when not a case, but he had applied for a passport renewal, and when he applied for a passport renewal, he was said that your application, so he had got a divorce, and 3 years later he applied for a passport renewal, so he had requested for the removal of spouse's name. Like in Indian passports we have name of our spouse and our parents, right? So he was doing that, and when he had submitted the US decree to it, and he had applied in New York passport for New York, and it literally says that as per the extent instructions. Let me share this so that when people read, um, they can like see this, read this. So yeah, I'm sharing this. So like
okay, let me put it up. Hold on a second.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, so this clearly says that, as per the extent instruction, the divorce decree dissolving marriage passed by foreign court is without jurisdiction.
Right.
Any ex parte foreign divorce judgment, even if it is duly apostilled by foreign government, is considered invalid
Hmm.
for the purpose of grant of passport service. Now, I have put up this passport service because this is the only place where my client's name was not visible. But
Hmm.
the same thing is applicable in banks, in property, and other different places where you have your spouse's name. And over here, which is hidden by my name, it says even in case of mutually agreed or mutually properly contested divorce cases, an application must be submitted by the parties at the competent civil court and declaratory authority, authentic and confirming the foreign divorce decree in accordance with Indian law. So you any which ways have to go to Indian courts, and you have to get a declaratory authenticating decree. But here the point is that if you are in some other country which is known as a territory
Hmm.
with India, then that territories, they can directly go to the court, they can get the the decree validated, and then they can submit it. But US is not part of that territory.
Hmm.
So we have to file a whole new case, and the foreign judgment is just one piece of evidence.
Wow. And that's a very different angle and how to look at it.
Yes.
No, that's a very interesting discussion, and I think that I'm hoping that at least a few people will be impacted by this and choose to seek out help earlier, for both their immigration statuses as well as for their divorce process, and they will choose to reach out to an international family law attorney. I'm going to put up your information again, Mitsu. Um, and Mitsu, you can find her, Mitsu Chavda, um, on multiple social media accounts, or you can email this email as well. And
And with that, you should speak about how to protect one's status. You spoke in very brief, but as you know, we both mostly work on some cases that are common between us. A lot of cases that I have got and I have sent across your ways are those who have no idea how to protect their statuses,
Right.
right?
So I
So
think, so what I would like to do is I would like to kind of touch, maybe expand on the thing that we talked about. When there is some form of, whether it's emotional, financial, um, physical, some form of marital abuse, which is often the case. Often the case, it gets brushed under the rug, and it doesn't get talked about much. So in that case, there are multiple options that a person can do, depending on the status of that person, her or his spouse. So if a person, for example, is on H4 visa, a lot of times we get that situation where a person is on H4 visa, and usually it's a female, just because 70% of H1B holders are male. Usually it's a female on H4 visa who thinks, I have no other options. I'm on a dependent visa. Now I need to go back to India, and, she will give up her rights. She will give up, her right to live in the US, her right to work in the US, and she'll directly go to India. And what we find is that in cases where there is some form of abuse, and you don't have to diagnose yourself as having abuse or not having abuse. You can talk to an attorney, you can talk to me, and I'll be able to determine that by asking you very, very good questions. um, and so when that happens, then a lot of times they are eligible for a special kind of EAD, employment authorization document, which does not, it's not, you don't have to have a police certificate for. A lot of times people know about U visa, which requires a police certificate, and they think, oh, well, we never called the police, so we can't apply for anything. And that is not the only visa that's available. There's something called an I-765V. That V is kind of out of the same laws that, you know, people are more familiar with VAWA, when somebody is married to a US citizen. It's out of the same set of laws, but this is for someone who's not married to a US citizen. So a lot of times there are exceptions like this that do apply to people who are not married to citizens, who maybe they are still navigating their options and they need to stay in the US a little longer before they give up on that option altogether. If
And a lot
someone
of
has,
people have a misconception that to fight your case in India, because that is your jurisdiction, you have to go to India. That is a
right,
misconception. And a lot of time people think that if we will fight the case in India, our spouse cannot come. But we even have provisions which, because they are still Indian citizens, they are on Indian passports, we still have provisions that court does have right over them. And people don't know that. And when it comes to abuse, any lawyer, Dhenu being an immigration lawyer, me being a family lawyer, any lawyer will tell you if you are abused or not. You don't have to specifically reach out to people, who are into immigration or family. But it is better if you reach out to them. So sometimes if you need any documenting to be done as per your state laws, we can really tell you if what you can do, what you cannot do.
right. And sometimes your own testimony, your own story of what has happened, that also forms one piece of evidence. So people think that they have to have like smoking gun evidences for these things. But really, these things happen behind closed doors. The law recognizes that mostly this happens behind closed doors. And so your statement and your testimony is a form of proof in this. And so then, there's that, there is U visa. U visa is when somebody has a police case, when they have been a victim of some form of crime. It doesn't have to be a domestic crime, but it could be a domestic crime, but it could be burglary in some cases, depending on the details. So when somebody is a victim of some form of crime, a lot of times they have U visa as an option to process their case. But if they have not been a victim of the crime, then they have other options. There is VAWA if someone is married to a US citizen, for example, or if they have children over the age of 21 who have also been abusive, who are US citizens, they still can access VAWA. So there are a lot of avenues, and I think people don't realize that exist. There is also another visa that I think hardly people know about, which is called a T visa. T visa is particularly important, and I'll tell you a story about this. This is a girl, she had come to the US, from Pakistan actually. She had come to the US and she had come to stay with a family friend. Now, this family friend um, took a liking to her. He wanted to get married to her, but she did not want to get married to him. And because she said no, he started, taking her passport and hiding it. And she was on a student visa, and he started harassing her to the point trying to convince her to say yes. uh, we were able to get her a T visa because of the way that this person was trying to trap her without her important documents. So, a lot of times people don't recognize that things which will lead to an eligible solution. They just ask the internet gurus, who may or may not know half information is more dangerous than no information. And and then assume they don't have a case or they have a case, and they'll make really big life decisions based on this half knowledge.
A lot of women, especially if we talk about, they also are financially so much abused that they cannot afford a lawyer. Yeah, recently you might have come across a post in a group that we both are in, where a lawyer really did nothing because it was NGO sponsored, and how the person had to suffer. I will not say that good lawyers don't do work for free or pro bonos, but there are certain criterias that we also work on pro bono. And essentially, we cannot work on contingency cases in any part of the world. For criminal cases or family law cases, contingent is a reason where you can get disbarred. If you are saying that, oh, once I win the case or I get my settlement and I will pay you some percent of money, and if any lawyer agrees to it, then remember that lawyer can get disbarred. And on the other hand, especially when it comes to criminal cases and family law cases, we have to work hours and hours. Our discoveries are hours and hours. If we do it pro bono, if we don't charge you anything, and if you are aggrieved by any decision, you can actually sue us for $1 million. And that's the risk that a lot of lawyers don't take. So most lawyers don't provide any pro bono services. We do have pro bono for genuine cases, and I'm not saying that your financial constraint are not genuine, but we also have an eligibility list which we have to fulfill to do it, and we have to submit the same thing to the court too, that why we are doing it for free. So people need to also consider that. And coming to that, I really want to speak about women who are earning, who are not earning, and women who have kids, whether it's male or female kid, have to have some kind of fund for yourself or for your child, for any kind of emergency. I will pray it's not a legal emergency or a medical emergency, but it could be any kind of emergency. It could be a layoff, least that you need some money to survive for some months. So I'll let Dhenu go first, and then I will go next.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying makes total sense. And of course, we're not talking as lawyers here, we're talking as members of our community, women in our community, to say that, when we see it, breaks my heart. I mean, it actually breaks my heart to see that somebody has no options, no financial out. It's so important to have kind of a something for yourself that you can use, um, to get out of any emergency, whether it is a divorce, whether it is any kind of other, your spouse may lose a job, your kid may get sick. I mean, who knows, there could be so many different types of emergencies where you may need to go back to work, or you may need to rely on savings for a bit. But having that little safety net, savings account is very important. I'm glad you touched on that, Mitsu.
I always tell my clients, no matter how young your child is, even a 1 month old child, start putting at least $100 a month. I'm not asking you more, just $100 a month. Both of them can put. If you can afford more, start putting more for them. When your daughter will grow up, eventually you can give that fund to them. It can be used as down payment for the house. We don't know where the prices will go, as you have seen. And the same way, I also tell all the women, whatever gifts you get, and in India, let's not lie about it, we get a lot of cash gifts, right? When we touch our elders feet during wedding or during different things, start saving them and putting them in your own thing. And if your husband tells you no, that you cannot have your own saving, damn, that's a financial abuse. Reach
That is
out to
exactly
lawyer.
it, right? Of course. That is exactly it. Taking away your self respect, taking away your independence, that is extremely abusing.
So there are ways people say, oh, we don't work. How will we have money? You can literally ask your husband to give you some money as a monthly maintenance, even when you are living with them, which could go to your savings. Don't have an ego, but you can actually ask that, and he cannot say no to that. And that's also one of the laws as per the marriage law that you are getting married through. So no more laws about it. Connect to people who know about it and use the laws which are for your own safety.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the things that we are trying to do, what we're trying to do is simply emphasize that there are many more options than what people realize, and that people do have to not just kind of guess on what steps to take, that they should be seeking some advice when things get tough. They should be asking questions, but not just to anybody, asking questions to the right people. That's very important. And if you are in doubt, having a one conversation with a lawyer sometimes can be such an important conversation to have, and it could be a life transforming conversation. So people underestimate the value of these advice sessions. They underestimate the benefit of it. And I think people think, okay, we're just talking. We're not just talking. This is years and years of knowledge that we are imparting on somebody.
And the late nights that we spend our books, I don't want to start getting into it. Like that's actually what we do. When we enroll into law, the first thing what we are taught is, now you are a lifelong student.
Yes.
So we actually do read, we actually do know what we have to talk about. And with that, I want to talk about, a very recent case of mine of 2022, where a lady escaped a domestic violence situation and sought help from a shelter. That shelter actually kept her for like 2 or 3 years, uh, because they said they will give free lawyer, used her photos, used her stories, used her kids photos, and they for their own charity and donation. And now that lady is so famous as a abla nari that she had to actually run away from the shelter, because shelter was not even leaving her. Shelter had their own rule: you cannot use this, you cannot go there, weekends you have to do this work. I am not saying NGOs and NPOs are evil, but what NGO and NPO you also reach out to is also a very important thing to know, because after all, they are also a business model. They also have families to feed, bills to pay, and that comes from charity and donation. But how charity and donation come, we all know it's from our stories. So if you want to and again, when you reach out to charity, when you are going to any NGOs or NPOs, you are not actually talking to a lawyer. So there is no attorney client privilege that you are forming. So you might be talking to someone who is just, who has done a BA, BSc, or who is a retired teacher or a retired techie who has no idea of law, is actually giving you a legal advice, or just giving you a marketing plan. If you come and take our help, how we can help you. But you have to look out for yourself. So always do some research when you reach out to people, and when you are in that state of mind, when you are going through uh, situationships, you are not actually able to think clearly. And when you reach out to community, our community as Indians is extremely helpful. However, not everybody can help you, so you have to consider that. If you are smart, you will not suffer. If you lose it a little bit, then that's how your suffering will start.
That's right. Not all NGOs are the same. That is very, very true. I actually did work at one point for an NGO, for a legal NGO, and we did help many, many clients. Some of the restrictions you mentioned, Mitsu, were definitely present. We were restricted by where we got funding and what types of cases we took also have limitations based on what our funding is available. So that is the limitation when you work with NGOs. They are not a replacement, I think, for a private lawyer, because a private lawyer just has more ability, more leeway to be able to take on various types of cases and to be able to handle them with efficiency.
Like legal NGOs still have a lot of restrictions, but the NGOs at large who are one time doing India festivals, at the other time they are helping out, domestic violence survivor, totally different thing. They don't have any restriction, and trust me, most of my complicated cases have escaped them and come to me. And even I have got a lot of offers from a lot of NGOs that, oh, this is how we earn. If you work with us, we will pay you good amount, and that is the amount which exceeds our fees.
Mm-hmm.
We'll pay you that much amount per case, but you have to make sure that this particular person is tied up with the NGO for XYZ years. And I was like, this is a, I can't say this without abusing right now, that this is a very bad model that you have. I cannot let a person suffer for XYZ years just so that you can use that person counting heads and showing people that, oh, see, we have you know 30 people this time.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right.
So that is one thing that I have been trying to educate people about for long. But when we speak about it, a lot of people think, oh, lawyers, it's their business. But just ask them to sign some privacy thing that you will not share. They will not share your stories, and and then you will know the truth by yourself.
Right. And confidentiality is a very, very big, important principle of an attorney client relationship. So, and it's there for a reason, it's there for the protection of the clients.
And the point is that a lot of people might not know. Even a court cannot ask us anything, whatever you have told us, unless it is about you telling someone, I want to kill this person.
Yes.
Whatever you
And
share with us.
confidentiality is very, very high. The obligation of confidentiality is extremely high. And that attorney client privilege, that conversation that you have with an attorney, nobody can touch it. Border officials, when you're entering the US, they can stop you, they can look through your laptop, they can look through your phone. But the conversations you have with an attorney, they cannot look through that and try to hold you accountable.
And therefore, we always tell our clients when they reach out to us, either have a special email ID for your conversation with lawyers, or at least have a special folders. You
Right,
know,
right.
so
That
these are
is
some small things that people don't realize, but because we work, me and Renu, we work regularly with, like, per day, I think we are talking to and meeting, like, for me right now it's nothing, but generally, uh, per day we are talking and meeting a more minimum 50 people who are going through this. So we don't forget these things.
right. It's a daily thing. It's a daily thing that we have had so much of experience talking to variety of people in similar situations as you. And sometimes people going through it, they think I'm the only one that's ever has to face this situation. But it's not true. And we can talk to you in a confidential way. So you don't have to worry about how good or bad you sound. We will not judge you because we have seen hundreds of cases similar to yours, even though you think you're the only one that has had a special situation.
And a lot of times, you will not know what legal options are available to you unless you talk to someone who knows what legal options are available to you. As Denu mentioned earlier, even someone screaming at you can open a lot of doors for you, whether it's immigration wise or whether it's family law wise. I had a case, and there was no evidences of domestic violence. And while I was talking to my client after a year, she told me, oh, when my daughter was born and like she was 7 months old, we had gone to a Target, and my husband had thrown everything uh, like on the road, and he just left. We actually sent notice to Target, we got that footage, and bam, we had that evidence which never existed. So we can dig out things, we have powers. Maybe Target will tell you, no, I cannot give you our CCTV footage, but they cannot say no to a lawyer, or if they say no to a lawyer, they cannot say no to a court order. So everyone needs to understand this whole process is, when you are going through some legal challenges in your life.
That's so true. Yeah, exactly. So you might have a stronger case than you think you have, right? Yeah. So it's been really nice talking to you, Mitsu, about this very important topic. I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to get together on this because we both provide different angles to this, conversation. But I think that sometimes these angles do mix up with each other.
It is always intertwined. Even criminal is intertwined because of domestic violence. You also, like, your immigration is more like crimmigration in this case.
Yes, yes, we often
And
do.
I know this because even I did my master's in immigration and criminal because you asked me to.
Yes,
So, and I will also like people to know that even we lawyers need lawyer. We cannot handle our own cases because of our own bias and judgments.
yes.
So
When we
I
have
yeah.
situation, we're also calling lawyers. That's so true.
Yes. So my own immigration case, my lawyer is Dhenu. So this is what also happens because I would be very biased or very judgmental or very emotional at a point of time that would cloud my judgment. And when we know everything and still we need someone to think for us for betterment of us and our case, then when we talk to a lot of people who have no idea about this, and another problem over here is, there is no legal education nowhere in the world. So
And
that is
unless you
one
study
thing.
it, unless you put your emphasis on studying it, it's very hard to learn about, the things that you have rights to. Yeah,
That's like totally, I would like to tell people. And it's not just about legal consultation on cases. We actually go and talk to community at large. So if you have if you have an NGO, if you have an NPO, or if even you are a small kitty party and you want us to talk to you, you have specific questions, like not a personalized question, but a specific question about the topic, we would love to come and speak to you and tell you, what you can do, what not, and how you can even help other women without being legally wrong.
right. Right. And if you're watching this and you find this to be useful for you, that's wonderful. If you think that some friends or family member or somebody else can use the information on here, feel free to refer them to this video. This is going to be on our Facebook and, in my case, also on my YouTube account. Um, and you can have them watch it, rewatch it. If you find something useful in it, please feel free to watch it and take notes on it, or you can contact us, whatever you're ready to do. Whenever you're ready, you can contact us, but definitely don't wait too long to do so.
Yes, and to summarize today, what we spoke about is, if you are an Indian citizen married in India and you are residing abroad, like in US on H1, L1, F1, H4, L2, F2, or other like J1, J2, then your primary jurisdiction for only dissolution of marriage lies with India. However, if you decide to go for a mutual divorce, you can go anywhere, but it has to be in accordance with Indian laws and Indian ground. And for that, I have written a whole article on my LinkedIn, on my uh, website. You can read that, and there are certain things that you will read and you will understand. Second thing we spoke about is child abduction, how one country which does not recognize child abduction and how other country that recognize child abduction, then how specifically those things are to be dealt, and how both of this uh, family law and child abduction, child custody, they are all intertwined with immigration, about your change of status, about your visa, how you can stay longer in longer time in US, and how your case, which is in whole another spectrum of family law, can help you with your immigration, is what Dhenu spoke about, and I let her take over uh, whatever she spoke. So they know you can just continue it.
Yeah, to summarize, I mean, one of the things that I want to just emphasize is that people will have more immigration options than they realize. A lot of times people have options that do require some form of abuse, but they might have situations that they don't consider to be abusive that may work for these cases as well. So one of the things that I just want to emphasize is, don't just undersell your own case. Don't think that you don't have any options, and take major actions to give away the rights that you have without consulting with a lawyer, without knowing, at least learning what your options are.
Yup, and once you do that, you are, and once your case gets complicated, you are losing a lot of things, time, money. You can earn a lot. You might have more time, but especially when it comes to child and your family, it's more complicated you than you think. So I
Right.
just want, like, we have this Savdhan India in India. It's a crime show. They say that you should be satark rahe. So you just have to be cautious for your own case, because only you have the power to do things. No one else can do anything for you.
Right. Right. And even though you might be going through a tough time right now, gathering up a little bit of strength to advocate for yourself, to seek help for yourself, it might be the most important thing you can do during a tough time.
And trust, uh, trust me when I say this. We are women. We actually understand where you come from when you say, oh, I was abused but I don't have evidence. That is perfectly all right, whether you go for immigration purpose, whether you come to divorce purpose, or criminal purpose. It is fine. Just talk to someone who has knowledge, rather than speaking to people who are not bound by attorney client privilege. And here I don't mean NGOs and NPOs. It's about some people who are self-claimed divorce counselor just because they got divorced. Another topic we can talk about other day, but
I think we have lots of topics and we would love to do this again. If people are interested, please comment and let us know what topics you would like us to talk about next. If we want a deep dive on any of the things we talked about today, Mitsu and I would love to do another session, answering your questions, or talking about slightly different situations if we have knowledge on that. So just post your questions, and if there is something we can talk about, we'll do another session and we'll advertise it. Also, follow us on Facebook, on social media, because that's how you will get information about any future sessions we do. So definitely we look forward to having our community be a part of us, our inner circles. We can't be everywhere at once, but we have our social media accounts where you will always find us.
and it's not only for people residing in US, it is also for people who have connection to US. If you are residing in India, as someone just commented, and you have your spouse who is in US, or vice versa, we can still help you.
Right. That's right. All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Mitsu. And I'm so glad we did this. Until next time, if anybody wants to contact us, wants to comment, we look forward to reading it.
Yep. Thank you all. And then it was really nice speaking to you.
Same, same, same.